talk about teaching your dog to keep the leash nice and slack while we're walking them. So to start out with, let's just talk a little bit about the opposition reflex. So when your dog pulls and we're standing back here trying to hold on, your dog is going to want to oppose that leash force by continuing to strain and pull against it. It's just natural for them to want to do it, and it's natural for us to want to pull back because humans have the opposition reflex too. So what we can do to help kind of break them of that natural instinctual habit of opposing that tension they feel is we can actually click and treat them for moving into the leash tension. So let's just see what that looks like for a moment here. So putting a slight tension on when the dog moves in to that tension or even looks the direction of the tension, we're going to click and treat. So try that first in an area with minimal distractions, such as inside your home, in your yard, in your driveway. Then you can try maybe just on your street, someplace with a little bit more distractions. Remember, set them up for success by increasing the distractions gradually. We'll actually have a whole video on what to do about distractions that you encounter while you're out and about with your dog. Let's talk about moving backwards away from the dog with the dog in front of us. This is a good precursor to loose leash walking, a nice exercise to help the dog to learn to stay with you as you're moving. It's a lot easier for the dog to focus on us when we're right in front of them and if we're moving fast. So if you're able to move fast during this one, that will really, really help, especially if you encounter a distraction, which we'll talk about later. Ready? So just clicking and treating the dog for staying with you. So we can add some sitting into this exercise. So it can become kind of a ramp up, settle down game. We run away, we get excited, and then as we suddenly stop, we're taking the treats that we're holding on the dog's nose as our lure, and we're bringing them up to our chest, which is going to cue them to suddenly sit when we suddenly stop. So here's what that looks like. So your dog is doing really well. You can skip some reinforcers here and there, and you can try fading that lure so your hands with the food isn't right in front of them as a bribe. Although if you encounter a really challenging distraction, nothing wrong with going back to your food lure if needed. So let's take that same exercise and shift the dog over to our left-hand side so that we can walk forwards instead of backwards. So first we're just going to lure the dog into position on our left-hand side. We'll get a couple treats loaded up in our hand. If you prefer your dog walk on the right-hand side, that's fine, but just make sure you pick one side and stick with it. So here's how it looks with the dog suddenly sitting when I stop on my left-hand side here. Ready? A really nice game to go into, especially if there's a big distraction in the environment. Let's talk about our 300 peck method for teaching a dog to walk nicely by our side. We're going to start out just stationary, and we're going to pivot a little bit. So I'm going to, as long as the leash is loose, I'm going to click and present a treat by my left pant seam. And then I'm going to stand up, pivot, click, treat by pant seam. I'm going to do that several times. And when the dog is learning, wow, this is a really cool place to hang out right by your side here, then I'm going to add in some forward movement. So first, let's see what the pivoting looks like here. So as long as the leash is loose, go ahead and click, treat by pant seam, stand up, pivot, click, treat. Once you and the dog both have the hang of that, again, start practicing indoors or in your yard, somewhere with minimal distractions. Once you have the hang of that, you can add in some forward movement. So you're going to just take one step forward, click, and present your dog with the treat at your pants seam. Then you can try 2 steps, click, treat, 3 steps, click, treat, 4 steps, click, treat. If your dog puts tension on the leash, just stop, turn around, go back to 1 step, and start over. So this is a way that we can make sure we're working at a level that our dog is progressing, but it's not too difficult for them. So we know that we've set them up for success if we're using this method. So here's what that looks like here. I'm going to load up my hand with treats. 1 step, 2 steps, there you have it, several of the methods for teaching a dog loose leash walking. One other thing I want to mention is for your dog to walk right next to you, like in a heel position, and not sniff around is really challenging for them. So we can't expect the whole walk to be our dog just heeling nicely. That's really, really challenging for the dog, and it's not a whole lot of fun for them unless they've had a lot of training to make it really, really fun. So we want to break up this walking nicely by our side with little sniffing breaks. So when our dog has a sniffing break, I usually like to say, okay, I gesture at whatever they're allowed to sniff, and then I follow them to keep the leash slack. if you do a little break for sniffing and you're following your dog, we're still not gonna allow any pulling on leash. So the moment you feel tension on the leash, stop. Lean in to take that tension off. Watch until your dog's body is nice and balanced, like how George's is here. It's not lunging forward. And once you're both rebalanced, you can just continue on. Alternatively, you could teach them to sit when they feel the leash pressure and then continue on once they've sat. So if you're doing a little sniffing break and your dog starts to go towards something you'd rather they not, remember you can use your leave it cue. If you want to get going and continue on your walk, it is your choice when to end the sniffing break. It doesn't have to be when the dog loses interest in it. That might be a really long time. So if you have time and you want to let your dog thoroughly investigate and sniff as a reinforcer for keeping the leash loose, great. If you've got somewhere to be or you see a big distraction coming or the situation looks like it could become dangerous, then you might need to call your dog away, tell them to leave it, have them do a hand target away from it, or body block them away. Or you can use the leash, but I would only use that as a last resort. And remember, we want to teach them to move into the leash pressure so that we're not pulling our dogs around, because that can be quite aversive for them. So there you have it, some basics for loose leash walking. We're going to do another video about distractions that you might encounter on walks and how to approach those situations. But hopefully this gives you some basics so that you can get started practicing on your property, on your street, and some low distraction areas like the park when there's no one else around. And you can get started teaching your dog some good habits about not pulling on leash. If your dog starts to pull, just stop. And oftentimes they will come back and release that tension on their own too. So that's the basics. Don't let your dog get inadvertently reinforced when there's tension on the leash. You are going to have to be mindful of them, and it's normal with a novice dog to have to stop every 2 or 3 steps at first, but stick with it. Pick a time to practice when you're not going to be easily frustrated. The process can be tedious. We're here to help you, and we want to see you and your dog succeed. So if you have any questions or concerns about loose leash walking, please reach out, and we're happy to help you. Have fun walking your dog.